The fourth critical choice I made was to create community and belonging. And you can see my shadows here. My It's a beautiful day outside here in Boston, isn't it,
That's nice.
Marty? But it's like we'll just deal with all the leaves coming in
I'd,
here.
I'd love to do that, but I'm in my studio, Trish, and without
Well, I
these
love
lights
your
on around me,
studio.
it's totally black.
Yeah, but your studio's
It,
awesome, and
it is beautiful.
I've seen you with a lot of your virtual, because you do a lot of virtual speeches and
Absolutely.
meetings and all of those things. So I love it. The fourth critical choice I made was to create community and belonging. For me, I didn't even really, I had never experienced what it felt like to belong. As a child, my dad forced us to move all the time from town to town, school to school, and I then began to um, feel like not belonging was almost powerful.
Right.
I don't need you. I don't need that. But that was just a whole bunch of hogwash because I desperately
Yes,
wanted to belong.
yes and no. I'm going to get back to this, but
Go. Well, no,
I
let's
tell,
just
I
get
tell you
into
what to
it. Just
feel.
give me your perspective. Just get into it right now. Give me your
Well,
perspective on what it feels
Well,
like.
I completely understand what you're saying, and I can see how isolating it is, but there is also power in it. And when I think about a leadership
Yeah.
role, you can't be close to people in the community sense that you're leading. You've got to have this
Hmm.
positioning of friendly, not friends. And so you've got to keep a professional distance. Otherwise, you can't lead them effectively and you can't serve them
Interesting.
properly if you're too close to them. So that little bit of separation, that little bit of a sense of, I don't quite belong here, is actually okay in that circumstance. Now, if that's the only area of your life that you're looking at, you can get into trouble fairly quickly. If you walk outside of work and you face the same thing, that's terrible. But if you've got this feeling of separation and not belonging necessarily in a leadership role, that's okay, as long as you have a sense of real belonging and community outside of that. And I remember one job in particular where I was, going through a pretty tough time in a project I was running many years ago, and I had an incredibly tight knit group of running partners. The level of community we had in that, we were running marathons together, so we go out on long
Ah,
training runs, 1.5, 2.5 hours on the weekends, and we would just, shoot the breeze and chat, and the connection and the level of bonding in that is unbelievable. And so, if you've got that sense of community and belonging somewhere in your life, you don't need to have it everywhere in your life, in my experience.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and Marty, I don't think you know this, but when I went through my own little journey of creating belonging, because I do believe that it's you create it. Like
Totally.
it's not, it just doesn't just happen, right?
Yeah,
You and your
absolutely.
your running mates created it together was through a running group.
Right.
I
Okay. There you
joined
go.
a running group
There you go.
in Chicago to train for the Chicago Marathon. I had never even run a step in my life.
Right.
Uh, but yes, so I met these five women, and it is the first time that I experienced this sharing of life experiences together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like
You know
little
exactly what I'm talking
things.
about, Trish.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
Oh, and you did multiple marathons. So you're okay. I'm going to ask a couple pointed questions because I want my community to hear the words from successful Marty CEO. What does it feel like not to belong?
Um, I think not to belong, if you are really, really solid in your own core, and if you're really, really solid in your own ability to cope, if you're really, really uh, comfortable with who you are, then the sense of not belonging isn't that bad a thing. And it's easy to handle because I know it's always going to come back. If I have a brief moment where I don't feel a sense of community, I know it'll come back. And I had this when I moved to the US in
Okay.
2021
Yeah.
before the publication of the book. We moved over here. My wife's a Bostonian, Kathy. We had a little apartment in a town called Winthrop, which is just out of the Boston city centre. And it was isolating. And I didn't have the same connection to family and friends that I just left behind in Australia. It would have been much harder to cope with if it weren't for a few things. The first thing, of course, being that, well, I don't need the material things. That's irrelevant to me. So I don't care that we've just sold our beautiful big house in, the leafy suburbs of Brisbane to move over here. More importantly, though, it was having that purpose in place. I knew why I was doing it. I knew what was driving me. I was committed to the outcome, and this is to do with long-term thinking, and I knew the community would come back. And so, here we are sort of a couple of years later. We've moved down further south. We're close to all of Kathy's childhood friends. I've found this sense of community again, which is awesome because it hasn't changed the way I feel about my purpose and what I'm here for, but it's just added that extra layer of enjoyment and satisfaction and belonging. So that's been really cool.
That's awesome. And
good, yeah.
And the answer, the next question, which was, what does it feel like to belong? So That's perfect. I'm going to take us to our fifth choice. I've kept you longer than I said I would keep you, but I just
as long as
love
your listeners
talking
aren't
with you.
as long as your listeners aren't bored, Trish, I'm good to go.
It's so good. Thank you for joining me for our Choose and Become interview series. You could find this episode and others at trishkendall.com. Just go to trishkendall.com/choose-become-interview-series. Or if you have a question or just want to leave a comment, email me, trish@trishkendall.com.